Hello, and welcome back to Realms Explorer History. Today we will delve into the warming pan baby conspiracy of Great Britain, which I think is both pretty funny and at the same time a testament to the political unrest and religious divide of the century. Before we dig in, let me introduce the main characters and set up the background. 1. King Charles II. First surviving son of King Charles I. Charles I was beheaded and executed by the English Parliament. Courtesy, Oliver Cromwell. 2. King James II. Second surviving son of King Charles I. 3. Catherine of Braganza. Charles II's legitimate wife, with whom he had no children. But he is famous for fathering several illegitimate children outside of the marriage, some of whom got recognized and became nobles. 4. Anne Hyde, first wife of James II, and daughter of the first Earl of Clarendon, a close advisor to Charles I. It was a small-scale scandal in those times that James had married way below his rank. She also couldn't give him any male heirs later on. Only 2 daughters survived, both were brought up as Protestants, though their parents were Catholic. 5. Mary of Modena. The second wife of James II. She was an Italian Catholic princess. Daughter of Alfonso IV, Duke of Modena, Italy. She had many children with James, but most died young. The most important, though, was James Francis Edward Stuart. His birth triggered the crisis of 1688. Because it meant that there would be a Catholic male heir threatening Protestant succession. 6. Mary II. First surviving daughter of James II from his first wife, Anne Hyde. She was Protestant and later took the throne, along with her husband, William of Orange, who was her cousin. 7. Anne, Queen of Britain. The second daughter of James. She too was Protestant. She inherited the throne when Mary and William of Orange died without children. She too died childless. Coming to the actual conspiracy, here's what happened next. Mary of Modena had had many miscarriages and infant deaths before. Few thought she'd produce a surviving son. This changed in 1688 when she gave birth to a boy. The boy was delivered in a private chamber with very few witnesses. Within hours, rumors had spread that the baby had died, and that a different baby had been smuggled in, hidden in a warming pan. A warming pan was a metal pan used to heat beds. I can only imagine how absurd that must have sounded to the king and his wife, how suffocating it must have felt, politics closing around them and controlling their very destinies. Instead of arranging a fully public, transparent royal birth, as had been common in earlier monarchies, James kept it private. Maybe he was afraid of assassination or had other fears, but the secrecy made it easy for his opponents to claim the baby wasn't legitimate. James's daughters, Mary and Anne, didn't help him. Anne herself wrote letters suggesting she believed the warming pan rumor. What happened after this was once again a huge blow to monarchy in Britain, just 1 generation after Charles I had been executed by the Parliament. Hope you enjoyed this little story. Next time, we will explore how events unfolded after this. What happened to the monarchy and the Parliament, and how this led to the glorious revolution. And welcome back to Realms Explorer History. Today, we explore the aftermath of the warming pan conspiracy, and how the throne changed hands. This conspiracy story gave the Protestant nobles cover to say, "We're not rebelling against a rightful king's son, we're defending the crown from fraud." They invited William of Orange, Mary's husband, to take the throne and rule England. William could then claim he was not invading as a conqueror, but arriving as a rescuer of English liberties and Protestant succession. Here, we will take a little detour to understand William of Orange in greater detail, as that will help us understand why certain things happened. William III of England was already one of the most important political and military figures in the Dutch Republic. He held the title Prince of Orange and, more importantly in Dutch politics, became the stadtholder of several Dutch provinces, especially Holland, Zeeland, and Utrecht. The role of stadtholder is a bit tricky because the Dutch Republic was not a normal kingdom. It was a loose republic made up of provinces ruled by wealthy merchant elites called regents. Officially, there was no king, The stadtholder was originally supposed to be a representative of the old Habsburg rulers back when the Netherlands belonged to Spain. But after the Dutch revolt, the office evolved into something closer to a military and political leader. He was Hereditary Prince of Orange, a noble title, stadtholder in key provinces, and Captain General of the Dutch Armed Forces. The Dutch Republic in the 1600s was under constant threat from France under Louis XIV. In 1672, France and its allies invaded. The Republic nearly collapsed, and William emerged as the main military leader resisting the French. His prestige rose enormously because he became associated with Dutch survival itself. It is fascinating how just a few decades before, the French were kind of cooperative with the Dutch Republic, which had been fighting for almost a century against Habsburg-controlled part of the Netherlands. After almost a century of grisly war, they succeeded in banishing the Habsburgs out, only to renew hostilities with France, which itself was opposed to the Habsburgs. Mostly because it was getting surrounded by the Habsburgs on both sides, and they were constantly expanding, but hey, that's a story for another day. Back to William of Orange. By the time the English nobles invited him to invade England in 1688, during the Glorious Revolution, he already controlled major Dutch political offices, had authority over the Dutch military, and could persuade the Dutch States General and elite merchants to support the expedition. He was also seen as a staunch French rival. The one thing the English nobles back home were concerned about with Catholicism was French domination due to Catholicism. With William of Orange, they could rest easy on this regard. What happened next was that James II got deposed, he fled. William and Mary took the throne in 1689. The son that was born to Mary of Modena, James Francis Edward, grew up in exile. He was known all his life as the Old Pretender and later launched the Jacobite movements. Mary and William ruled from 1688 until Mary died in 1694. Then William ruled until 1702, at which time he died childless too. Then, throne passed to Queen Anne, Mary's sister. She is called Queen of Great Britain rather than Queen of England, because, during her reign, the kingdoms of England and Scotland formally united under the Acts of Union 1707, creating the Kingdom of Great Britain. And, too, had several miscarriages, but couldn't produce a living heir. So, the throne passed to the Hanoverian line, George I of Hanover. He is descended from Sophia of Hanover. Sophia was the daughter of Elizabeth Stuart, daughter of James I, who was the first Stuart king of England. Elizabeth Stuart married the German Protestant Prince Frederick V, Elector Palatine. Their daughter was Sophia. The reason Sophia became crucial was the Act of Settlement 1701. By 1701, England faced a succession crisis. Anne, Queen of Great Britain, had no surviving children. There were actually many living Stuart relatives closer by blood than Sophia, but most of them were Catholic. Parliament decided that no Catholic, and not even someone married to a Catholic, could inherit the throne. So the Act of Settlement specifically designated Sophia and her Protestant descendants as heirs. This bypassed dozens of closer Catholic claimants, including James Francis Edward Stuart, the Old Pretender. Sophia herself died only weeks before and in 1714, so the crown passed to Sophia's son, George I of Great Britain. That is why Britain suddenly got a German-speaking king from Hanover. James Francis Stuart, aka the Old Pretender, and his grandson Charles Edward Stuart still claimed the throne though. Their supporters were the Jacobites. They tried uprisings in 1715, 1719, and the most famous one in 1745. All of them failed, and after the Battle of Culloden, where Charles Edward led many Scottish Highland clans against the English government forces, and suffered a brutal defeat due to battle on plain ground, the Stuart cause completely died off. The Hanoverian line was secure from this point on. Charles Edward managed to escape to France. After the defeat, he became a fugitive in the Scottish Highlands and Islands for several months while government forces hunted him. This period became legendary in Jacobite history and folklore. One of the most famous episodes involved Flora MacDonald. She helped Charles escape from the island of Benbecula by disguising him as an Irish maidservant named Betty Burke. He was ferried across to Skye and eventually managed to evade capture. There's a huge romantic mythology around this escape. Songs, poems, paintings, and stories turned Bonnie Prince Charlie into a tragic heroic figure. Eventually, Charles Edward escaped by ship back to France. But his later life was far less glamorous than the legend. He became increasingly bitter and alcoholic, lost much of his earlier charisma, and never successfully launched another invasion attempt. He died in Rome in 1788, still claiming the British throne as the rightful Stuart king. Interestingly, after his death, the senior Stuart claim technically passed through further Catholic relatives, but by then Jacobitism had largely faded as a serious political movement. Hope you enjoyed these snippets. Next, we will look into the Glorious Revolution itself. It is said to be a great victory for Parliament, and the point where it achieved control over monarchy. But there's a question to consider. Why did William of Orange agree to these concessions? He had the army, the support of the people, and much more, so why agree to this handicap to the monarchy? We will see why next. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 transformed Parliament from an advisory body to the ultimate sovereign power in Britain. By deposing King James II and offering the throne to William and Mary, Parliament permanently ended the divine right of kings and established a constitutional monarchy, where the monarch rules by the consent of the governed. Parliament secured this shift by passing the Bill of Rights in 1689, which changed its role in several concrete ways. 1. The monarch was forbidden from levying taxes without the direct consent of Parliament. 2. Maintaining a standing army during peacetime was declared illegal without parliamentary approval, eliminating the monarch's ability to intimidate political opponents with military force. 3. The king or queen could no longer suspend or bypass laws passed by Parliament. 4. The Bill of Rights guaranteed freedom of speech during parliamentary debates. It was in many ways more a financial revolution than anything. Parliament deliberately kept William III and his successors underfunded for their wars. What this did was made the convening of the Parliament more frequent and important to the royal family and the country as a whole. In 1690, the Commons established a Commission of Public Accounts to monitor how the revenue was being spent by the Crown and began inserting appropriations in its supply bills, directing how the revenue it raised was to be used for specific purposes. That is, instead of just monitoring and questioning, it straight out started giving instructions, and if they weren't followed, that would automatically come under monitoring and questioning as to why they weren't. This increased parliamentary control of revenue helped to ensure the success of the Bank of England, created by statute in 1694. As investors in the bank could now be confident that their loans to the government would be repaid by parliamentary taxation, appropriated for that purpose. Unlike Spain and France, who were straight up ganging up and showing a mafia-like behavior towards investors and creditors. But that's a story for a different day. The Parliament also created something called a civil list. Through this, it granted the Crown revenues for running the royal household and administration. This further permanently altered the relationship between the King and the Parliament. So, in essence, it was a process by which Parliament directly and indirectly created a system through which it came into increasing control of the nation's finances as time passed. But why did William agree to such conditions? Especially when Parliament itself was desperate for him to invade. We will see why in a few minutes. William of Orange and Mary II agreed to these sweeping restrictions because it was a highly strategic trade-off that gave both sides exactly what they wanted. Neither was acting out of pure political altruism. The compromise was solidified due to several key factors. 1. William's life mission was to contain the aggressive expansion of the Catholic French king, Louis XIV. The Dutch Republic could not fight France alone, and William desperately needed England's massive financial revenues and military resources. Striking a deal with Parliament allowed him to secure immediate, long-term funding for the 9 Years' War. He willingly traded away domestic English royal prerogatives in exchange for the cash needed to fund his European military campaigns. 2. Contrary to popular belief, Parliament did not aggressively force the Declaration of Rights onto William and Mary as an absolute ultimatum for the crown. Instead, it functioned as a mutual pact. William and Mary were deeply committed to safeguarding the Protestant faith across Europe. They viewed the restrictions, which mostly targeted the specific royal abuses previously committed by the Catholic James II, as a reasonable price to pay for securing a powerful Protestant alliance between England and the Dutch Republic. 3. William held immense bargaining power because he had brought a full Dutch army with him to English shores. When the English Convention debated setting up a temporary regency instead of making him king, William cut the discussion short. He flatly threatened to withdraw his army and completely abandon England to political chaos and a potential bloody return of James II if he was not crowned joint monarch alongside Mary. Because Parliament feared James's return, they quickly conceded. For Mary flat out refused to rule as sole queen. She insisted on a true joint sovereignty. Parliament conceded, and so did William, to some of the Parliament's demands. And so, the glorious revolution happened. And so, in the end, at the heart of it all was one party trading off the millennia-old, worldwide tradition of rule of kings by divine right and succession. If you think about it in this manner and context, it becomes clear how important of an event this was in history. It was, of course, made easier by the fact that the party involved was in active conflict over this very divine right with the Catholic heirs of James II. So, they chose the throne and a few other material benefits over something that was in conflict. If you ask me, that's very understandable. With that, we conclude this small foray into English history. Thank you for listening, and hope you enjoyed. Next time, we will shift gears completely and explore a completely different part of the planet, Oceania. And we will go back at least 100,000 years, talk about beings that walked this planet before Homo sapiens. We will leave this political stuff long behind us and talk about boats, civilizations, and extinct humans.